The forest exhaled a metallic scent, as if the earth breathed rust. Dr. Silva adjusted the flashlight on his forehead. Beams of light sliced through the fog hanging over the remains. Dozens of human bones were intertwined with roots that seemed to pulse beneath the soaked soil. It wasn't a clandestine cemetery. Bodies were fused with the vegetation, vertebrae welded to twisted branches, skulls opened, exposing bioluminescent fungi. Inverse taxonomy, he noted in his notebook. The local guide's voice echoed from behind. Have you seen enough? This isn't a place for people. Silva ignored him, but his hands trembled as he collected a sample of purple lichen growing where a heart should have been. Later, at camp, he reviewed the photos. One showed something unnoticed before, a skeletal hand, fingers curled in a fetal position, clutching a metallic object. He zoomed in. It was a military medal dated 1943. The radio crackled. The static formed patterns resembling voices. He switched it off, but the buzzing persisted in his ears. In the tent next to his, the biology student whimpered softly, repeating, "They're here," until he fell asleep. Silva took a sip of cold coffee, trying not to associate the bitter taste with the blood that had dripped from one of the skulls during the collection. Days passed until the first team vanished. They found only abandoned equipment near the river. Broken cameras, twisted tripods, as if something had ripped them from the ground. The expedition's pragmatic coordinator, a man with thick glasses, insisted, "It's a unique geological phenomenon. Guaranteed publication in Nature." Silva agreed, but started sleeping with a scalpel under his pillow. That night, he dreamt of voices whispering in ancient Latin, pale hands emerging from the soil to touch his ankles. In the third week, things worsened. The region's animals, armadillos, monkeys, insects, began exhibiting anomalies. Extra limbs, exposed organs without bleeding, symmetrical patterns of scales replacing feathers. The biologist, recovered from his nervous breakdown, caught a spider with 8 eyes identical to those of a corpse found days before. Induced cellular transdifferentiation, he asked. No one answered. Silva noticed that the trees near the site had black veins beneath the bark, like fossilized blood vessels. One night, the coordinator disappeared. He left a diary with desperate entries. They aren't dead. They're waiting. The forest is a womb. Silva, now de facto leader, sent everyone away. But as they tried to leave, the paths changed. The compass spun relentlessly. The GPS marked non-existent coordinates. The river, once full, dried up, revealing black stones with inscriptions similar to those on the military medal. The student, now eerily calm, said, "It's a ritual. We need to complete the circle." Silva denied the idea, but the next morning he woke up with his own hands burying the medal in the ground. On the 15th day, the rescue helicopters arrived. Everyone was thin, but alive, except the student. His body lay in the center of the site, translucent skin, organs glowing in the dark, his mouth open in a smile with elongated teeth. Questioned, Silva said he remembered nothing. In the lab, he kept a sample of the purple lichen. Under the microscope, the cells divided in patterns resembling constellations. At night, alone, he sometimes heard whispers coming from the petri dish. Years later, the forest was isolated. Official reports spoke of chemical contamination. Silva, a university professor, avoided commenting on the case. Until a student brought an article about necrophagus symbiosis in an obscure journal. The photo showed an elderly woman, her skin marked by black veins, smiling at the camera. On the back, the dedication, "For Dr. Silva, who understood the gift." He burned the paper, but noticed that the medal around his neck, a gift from the missing coordinator, had the same inscriptions as the stones from the river. Today, he wakes up feeling roots growing beneath his skin. They say the forest is expanding. On nights of full moon, military trucks enter and leave the restricted area, transporting sealed boxes with the symbol of a stylized tree. Silva doesn't sleep without sedatives. But in his classes, students swear they see something moving behind his eyes. The forest responded first in the soil samples, fluorescent mycelia rearranging themselves into patterns when he whispered questions. The makeshift lab smelled of formaldehyde and fear. The biologist, with dilated pupils that didn't react to light, described organisms as conscious scars. One night, The spectrometer registered vibrations in frequencies close to human voices. Silva recorded the sounds, but when he played them back, the speakers exhaled a viscous liquid that corroded the equipment. The missing coordinator returned at dawn. They found him on the edge of the dried-up river, translucent skin, organs pulsing in sync with fungi on skulls. "She is calling," he said, his voice echoing like a well. "The mother tree." Before Silva could react, the man tore out his own eyes and buried them. Roots emerged, forming an anthropomorphic figure pointing west. The group, reduced to 5, followed towards the mountain, where satellites detected a thermal anomaly. Along the way, they found artifacts: an obsidian blade with fossilized human DNA, a 1918 diary mentioning a harvest, and something shaped like a child, sitting under a tree, sewing animal skin with leaf veins. It handed Silva a human femur wrapped in lichen. "He feels no pain, but you will." The bone dissolved in his hand, releasing spores that made him vomit black blood for hours. Reaching the anomaly, they saw a structure, a tower of intertwined bones with vegetable veins pulsing like a heart. In the center, a figure in bark armor chanted hymns, causing blood to clot in the veins of those who listened. The student, presumed dead, was there, his skin covered in ancient Latin script. "You have unearthed the seed," he said. "The forest needs new roots." A searing pain exploded in Silva's neck. His spinal cord branched out, breaking the skin into translucent tentacles. The entranced biologist tore one of the tentacles and inserted it into the ground. The earth swallowed the group, spitting them out into an underground chamber with walls of human teeth. There, on a nebulous stone altar, a decaying corpse bathed in its own skull, housing a living brain connected to roots extending for kilometers. "I am the first gardener," said the brain, using the corpse's vocal cords. "You are the next." Silva, bleeding from every pore, noticed tentacles on his back penetrating the vertebrae of 2 colleagues. The last entry in his notebook, before the blood solidified the ink, was, "Symbiosis is not an option. It's an invitation." Above, on the surface, the military helicopters arrived too late. They found only a plantation of young trees, each trunk marked with a medal identical to the 1943 one. In Brasilia, the general received a report with photos of the recovered bodies. All the skulls, even those recently buried, displayed bioluminescent fungi. He burned the documents, but noticed that the forest, on the map, had advanced 3 kilometers towards the capital. That night, Silva woke up in a hospital, the tentacles replaced by spiral scars. The nurse smiled, revealing teeth that glowed in the dark. "The harvest continues," she whispered. Silva left the hospital a week later. The scars itched beneath his shirt. He avoided mirrors since noticing his eyes, with slit pupils like reptiles, reflecting bioluminescent green in the dark. The metal around his neck, a gift from the coordinator, had tiny roots sprouting from the edges, piercing his collarbone. On the street, ordinary trees exhaled a metallic scent, and birds pecked at fruits dripping purple liquid. A beggar at the bus stop whispered, "She is in everything, doctor," before opening his mouth, revealing fungi growing between his teeth. The university's lab had been sealed. Colleagues said he was delirious, but Silva found the assistant in the storage room, sewing rat skin to eucalyptus leaves. "Symbiosis is inevitable," he said, his voice echoing like a log. On the floor, charcoal drawings showed the forest swallowing the city. Buildings transformed into trees with windows as eyes. Silva fled, but as he passed the gate, the security guard had roots sprouting from his ears. At the bus station, he bought a ticket north, but the bus stopped at a military barricade. Soldiers in lichen-stained uniforms searched passengers, injecting black liquid into the necks of those who resisted. One of them, with black veins on his face, recognized Silva. "The general wants the beautiful. The mother tree chose you." Silva ran, but the streets twisted like roots, leading to a park where children played with bones growing like bamboo. One of them, with elongated teeth and translucent skin, handed him a rotten apple with a 1943 medal in the center. At the airport, he boarded a crowded flight filled with passengers with scars identical to his. The flight attendant served drinks in tree bark cups. The pilot announced turbulence caused by organic winds. Silva didn't know if it was fear or something else that guided him, but the forest whispered in his ears, summoning him like an ancient call. He felt the earth's roots intertwining with his veins, flesh reconfigured by a force he didn't understand. Each step was a choice, and he didn't know if the decision was his or the forest's. Time unraveled, and each day became a distorted memory of who he had been before. That night, while others slept, Silva awoke with urgency, as if something within him demanded release. He left the tent and found the student, now transformed, sitting under a tree, his body radiating bluish-green light. "You are about to understand," he said. "Symbiosis is a blessing, not a curse." Before he could answer, the student rose and danced, his hands turning leaves and roots, the forest vibrating with ancient energy. The next day, the team discovered a new area, a clearing with spiraling giant trees, roots forming ancient symbols. In the center, a human figure wrapped in leaves, with a peaceful face. Silva approached, feeling a strange calmness. "She is sleeping," he murmured, his hand on her chest. The roots pulsed, a voice echoed in his mind. "You have reached the end of the path. Now, you belong to the forest."